Vijñāna-bhairava-tantra, verse 98. This verse continues the contemplative topic that we were discussing in the last verse of desire and thought and their relation to one's integral being. So here's the verse. Icchāyām athavā jñāne jāte cittaṃ niveśayet ātma-buddhyānanya-cetās tatas tattvārtha-darśanam. I messed up the meter, so I'm going to do it again. Icchāyām athavā jñāne jāte cittaṃ niveśayet ātma-buddhyānanya-cetās tatas tattvārtha-darśanam. Which means, or on the other hand, continuing from the previous verse, when desire and or thought do arise, one should focus the heart-mind on the energy of that desire or thought and let it be unwavering and one-pointed in considering that energy as an essential śakti of the self. Then one will see things as they really are. So this is a very important verse indeed, because it continues exploring this absolutely key tantric doctrine that was at the time a huge reversal from the earlier traditions of Sankhya and Patanjalian yoga. Because there, consciousness is thought to completely stand apart from and be separate from the body-mind and all its functions. And here, will and cognition are thought to be intrinsic to consciousness itself. So they're not just functions of having a physical body. If you are a deva or some other kind of being without a physical body, but you just have a light body, you still have will and cognition because you're conscious. If such beings exist, I'm not making the claim one way or another. I'm saying if they do, that they're not different in that way. Consciousness has the same capacities in all beings. Of course, some beings don't exercise all of those capacities, but they're there. So, it's hard to stress how significant of a difference this is, right? It's the difference between believing that consciousness is a pure witness that's by its nature utterly disengaged from the world, that spirit is something that transcends matter and is ultimately separate from matter, versus the tantric view, which is in a sense quite the opposite, right? And the tantric view, I think makes sense to neurologists today. It's actually interesting because neurologically you can kind of argue for both sides of this ancient Indian philosophical debate. But consciousness is embodied. Again, whether it's a physical body or some other form of body, consciousness is embodied, and it is by its nature engaged with the world. And it is important to be able to distinguish consciousness per se from the capacities and functions of consciousness. That's in a sense distinguishing Shiva and Shakti, even though they're ever intertwined. One still needs to be able to distinguish them. Okay, so here it says, icchāyām athavā jñāne jāte. That's the first phrase. When desire or will or impulse or urge, icchā, and cognition, jñāna, arise, jāte, then cittaṃ niveśayet, one should cause the mind to frequent or be focused on, cause the heart mind, in fact, citta is better translated as heart mind, as I've argued in Tantra Illuminated. One should focus the heart mind on that very energy of desire or thought. Now, this doesn't mean engaging the content. This doesn't mean thinking about what you desire. And this doesn't mean thinking about what you're thinking about. It doesn't mean engaging the content of thought. It means paying attention to the energy of desire and thought. What does it feel like to have a desire? What does it feel like to have a thought? One of the ways we do this is we ask questions like, oh, if this thought had a color, what might it be? If it had a texture or a temperature or a vector, what might it be? And that helps us orient to the quality of thought as energy rather than get caught up in the contents of thought. Okay, so that's what we're invited to do here in this verse. And then it says, ātma-buddhi, or rather, ātma-buddhyānanya-cetās. Let the cetas, which is a synonym of citta, let the heart mind be unwavering, ananya. Let it be one-pointed. It's a synonym for one-pointed. Let the heart mind be unwavering and one-pointed with the consideration, buddhi here is consideration or discernment, that the energy in question of desire or cognition is an essential shakti of the self. Here it just says, is the self. All right, but what's meant is an essential shakti of the self. And indeed, remember, the author has to fit the idea or the teaching here into 2 lines of 16 syllables each, or 4 lines of 8 syllables each. So a certain sort of telegraphic brevity of expression is demanded by the form, right? But we know from, we being here scholars, know from reading widely in the tradition what's meant when these verses express very, very briefly in this way. Okay, so let the heart mind be unwavering and one-pointed in considering that energy of desire or cognition as an essential shakti of the self, as expressing from the self, and it merges back into the self when it subsides. Okay, again, a radical teaching at the time. Then, tatas, tattvārtha-darśanam. One will see things as they really are. One will have the vision or view, darshana, of tattvārtha, the actual nature of things, the substance of reality. Okay? So, you'll see things as they really are if you examine these thoughts and desires and so on, and notice how they emerge from consciousness, or we could just call it being, your being. Atma doesn't have to mean soul, by the way. It could just mean being, your innate being. And you observe these phenomena arise and subside. Just observe that. Just slow down and observe that, And if you're one of those people that has more time on your hands these days, what are you doing with it, by the way? Are you just watching more TV? Are you just, or are you using this golden opportunity? There's even a saying in the Tantric tradition, I will not waste this golden opportunity. I will use my time. So here's an example, slow down a bit. Do some introspection. See what that brings you. Now, part of the problem is that we're in a culture where we want immediate returns, and this kind of introspection bears fruit over days and weeks and months. So just, just sitting with it, a little bit more and more, maybe even just a few minutes a day, and see what happens. But there is a kind of cumulative effect to devoting yourself to this sort of practice that is more rewarding than one could possibly suspect on the basis of, doing it once or twice. Okay, that's verse 98. Could be that the next verse is on the same topic. I'm forgetting right now. But yeah, we're coming up on the landmark of 100 videos, 100 verses. Hasn't actually been exactly one video per verse, but it's about that many. I want to once again thank the patrons on my Patreon page, whose support, has meant the world to me, and has given me a foundation in the last 3 years to do a lot of this, to make a lot more offerings. Not only these mostly off the cuff videos, but also free offerings that we put a lot of time and care into, like the new Foundations of Tantric Yoga course, which is a polished, produced course as best as we could at the time, but it's very, very good. Well, you guys have been saying, 7,000 of you have been saying it's great. And again, this is possible. That particular course was made possible by the patrons on Patreon. So maybe we can publish a list of their names so you can thank them or something like that, celebrate them. Anyway, Om. See you soon.